Just to clarify, Gaza is not a country. It is not an independent state, the same way that Israel is. It does not have its own fully functioning, fully independent government. It does not have its own military power, nor does it even have full control over its land.
10 minutes ago, an urgent statement from the UN RWA schools. The Israeli occupation requested the evacuation of 5 schools crowded with displaced persons in Gaza City in preparation for their bombing. 5 schools, all with displaced people who lost their homes in bombing.
Gaza is an occupied territory in Israel. Israel has full control over what goes in and out of Gaza, who goes in and out of Gaza. They have full control over the borders. They have full control over the airspace, the water. They have control over Gaza's electricity, water, food supply, imports, exports, even medical supplies and humanitarian aid. Israel has control over it. Palestinians there do not have free movement in and out of Gaza. They have to obtain special permission from Israel just to leave and just to enter.
Israel has officially began to bomb south of Gaza after telling Palestinians in Gaza to flee there because they were caring for the safety of Palestinians. It is mostly women and children that are being blown up to bits. There's no more internet connection in Gaza, so we can barely see what's happening.
Israel has had a full military blockade on Gaza since 2006, as in anything and everything surrounding Gaza, Israel has control over. That's why people refer to Gaza as the largest open-air prison in the world. It's literally a jail. It's a massive bubble that Palestinians have to live in based on however Israel wants them to live. If Israel wants to cut off electricity to Palestinians and only give them 3 hours of electricity a day, which they very often do, they have the freedom to do that because they have full control over Gaza.
Still supporting Israel. Palestine does not have a government, and you say that it's Hamas. Hamas is a resistance group. They're only going and fighting back because Israel started. Israel came to our land first. Israel came and bombed us first. Wake up! What are you doing? You're over here supporting people who are literally buying children, little babies, newborn babies. Just 2 days ago, they bombed the hospital and killed 800 Palestinians. For what? For who? For fun? No, this is a genocide, and Biden signed off on it, and Netanyahu is a murderer.
Israel doesn't even allow Gaza to have their own airport. They destroyed it in the early 2000s, and because Israel has control over the airspace, they can't rebuild one and just start flying out. Palestinians have to obtain permission from Israel to leave Gaza, and then if Israel grants them permission to leave Gaza, they have to take a bus from the border between Egypt and Gaza all the way to the airport in Egypt, and then they can fly out. Just think about that for a second. People in Gaza literally don't even have the right to have their own airport. That should give you a little bit of insight to what it's like living in Gaza under Israel's control.
Hi everyone, I'm still alive and I want to tell you about my biggest fear. So my biggest fear is not to die. Actually, I'd rather prefer to die than living all of these nightmares, continuous nightmares. My biggest fear is to live. After all this war, to live and face the reality that our cities, our homes, our homeland, and everything is destroyed. Our beloved ones, our friends and relatives are killed, and to face that we don't have work and we have to deal with a lot of humanitarian crisis and people are facing winter. Winter is coming.
It's not like Israel is taking good care of these people in their land. No, they're treating them like subhuman. This is 2 million Palestinians living on a sliver of land that is 25 miles by 5 miles long. When Israel bombs Gaza and there are hundreds dead and thousands injured, they have control over what humanitarian aid enters Gaza. And more often than not, they actually prevent humanitarian aid from entering Gaza, whether from the waters or the border with Egypt. And this is literally happening right now. Israel is bombing Gaza, and Israel threatened Egypt, telling them to not send humanitarian aid to Gaza.
I haven't slept in 2 days. Every time I close my eye, I either hear a bomb or see a light or hear a noise or hear a scream or hear a neighbor evacuating. So I'm like, should I evacuate now or should I just wait for my death in my own house?
The land mass of Gaza or Gaza Strip is a direct product of the settler colonial state of Israel. Before 1948, Israel did not exist. It belonged to Palestine. It was called Palestine. Britain, who was colonizing Palestine at that time, decided to established this false state known as Israel on the land of Palestine and began ethnically cleansing Palestinians from the land, killing our people, and forcing more than 750,000 Palestinians to flee their land. And thus, the state of Israel was born. From then until now, the size of Palestinian land has been shrinking every single day. And what's left is Gaza Strip, this little piece of land, and the West Bank, which Israel also has full control over.
There are many Palestinians in Gaza that still want to remain there. They are not going to leave because their last form of resistance is to die on this land.
Hamas is not Gaza's government. They are purely an administering power. The actual governing power of Gaza is Israel. Gaza doesn't have a military. The only form of protection the Palestinians there have is militant resistance groups like Hamas. They have nowhere near the military power that Israel has. Israel gets $3 billion of military aid from the US alone every single year. And that's just military aid. What does Gaza have? Literally nothing. It's ironic when Israel declares war with Gaza when they're two completely different powers. Even if Gaza wanted to start a military, they can't because Israel controls what goes in. And obviously they're not going to let them bring in weapons. So you are very, very wrong and misinformed if you think that Israel fighting with Gaza is a fair fight. Go read, watch any video on YouTube about how Gaza got to become what Gaza is right now. What's happening right now to Gaza is an ongoing issue. Israel bombs the bejesus out of Gaza and then suffocates them, preventing humanitarian aid and food and water from entering. This is nothing new. I literally recorded a podcast episode during the last Gaza attacks just this last May, giving a much more comprehensive breakdown of Gaza. So if you want to learn about it, Generic Muslim Podcast, Gaza attacks.
The United States will be and always has been an oppressive state of colonial power, a beacon of colonization. And so because of that, they will always throw themselves in support behind other oppressive states of colonial power. Just look at what the United States has done within its own borders to its own communities.
Hi, I just feel compelled to say that there is no amount of self-care, eating right, exercising, treating yourself to a little something that can protect you from the mental health consequences of witnessing genocide.